How often have you found yourself watching a student as he or she is trying to solve a math word problem and you're thinking to yourself, where is the struggle here? When I was in the classroom, I taught students to ask themselves two questions when they were solving math word problems. What information have you been given? And what are you being asked to do with the information? Well, what if that same student who is trying to solve a grade level math word problem is having trouble with reading comprehension or simply doesn't understand the real life concept that is being expressed in the word problem? I know I hadn't given this idea much thought before my conversation with today's guest. Stay tuned for my conversation with Ciera Harris about the correlation between reading comprehension and successful math word problem solving. Welcome to Upper Elementary Simplified, the podcast where busy and overwhelmed teachers find thoughtful ideas to get students engaged in meaningful learning experiences. Hi, I'm Danna Rodebush, former fifth grade classroom teacher and founder of Teacher Tech Studio. I'm here to share practical tips and strategies that will help you grow as an educator. If you are a tired upper elementary teacher searching for ways to cut down your planning time while boosting student engagement, you are in the right spot. Are you ready? Let's simplify. Hello, hello. Today's guest is Ciera Harris from Ciera Harris Teaching. Sierra is a former elementary school teacher turned entrepreneur, and she brings over a decade of experience in perfecting reading instruction. Specializing in understanding reading skills and strategies, crafting flawless lesson plans, and serving early readers, Sierra is dedicated to sharing her insights with fellow educators. With a background as an instructional coach and extensive experience presenting at reading conferences nationwide, she left traditional classrooms to support teachers across the country. Sierra has developed her own course on reading comprehension and designed a comprehensive reading curriculum. When not immersed in her work, she enjoys family time with her three children and husband, displaying a passion for Notre Dame football and a love for oversized earrings. I am so excited to welcome Sierra to the show. Sierra, welcome to the show. Please tell my audience a little bit about you and how you serve the education community.
Well, hi. First, I want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Ciera Harris. I'm a former elementary teacher. I taught second and third grade, and then was a K-4 coach, I guess you could call it, for math and reading. So I've kind of done almost all of the elementary grades. I don't think I've ever done anything with fifth grade. But I stepped outside of the classroom about, gosh, how long has it been now? Six years ago, to serve teachers full time in my business by providing them with rigorous and engaging resources, professional development. I've got a membership, a website, just basically anything you can think of to really give teachers the tools and the resources and the knowledge that they need to be the best teachers they can possibly be.
I love that. And I think that's funny too that you say that you have only been in, or you've been in all elementary grades except for fifth grade, because I have only ever been in fifth grade. So I think that we make a good pair. So that is
We
really,
do.
really interesting. And I'm super excited to talk to you today about reading comprehension and how it plays a role in math, because math was always my thing. I taught reading. I taught all literacy subjects, but I never felt like a real strong connection. Like I was, like it was where I excelled. I felt like I excelled in math. So I'm excited to talk to you today about reading comprehension and how it works with math. So tell us, does reading comprehension play a role in students' overall understanding of math word problems? And if so, how would you say that happens?
Yeah, of course. And again, I love that you feel more comfortable in math because I'm the complete opposite. I am
That's
very much
awesome.
a reading guru.
That is awesome.
So
We're
I
a
think that
perfect pair.
we are like the perfect pair. Like we could like
Yeah.
team up and rule the elementary world here,
The
couldn't we?
whole world. Yes, we could.
So yes, and I think many teachers, for some reason, we have um this barrier, this wall between math and reading. And so when we go in from one subject to another, teachers sometimes forget that a lot of times these two things are so much more interconnected than we remember that they are. When it comes down to math, specifically math word problems, students have to be able to comprehend and make meaning of what they're reading before math can even be applied. So, really, math is almost like a secondary component when it comes to solving math word problems. So, there's a lot of different areas in where comprehension or reading comprehension and math word problems really connect. The first is your basic, so your language processing and your interpretation. Reading comprehension is crucial for students to be able to understand the language that is used in math word problems. They have to understand it in their own words. Students need to be able to process, they need to be able to interpret the information that they are reading in the problem accurately before math can even be a second thought. Proficient reading skills actually enable students to comprehend the context, to do things like identify details, extract relevant information, all of that in which is necessary for actually solving the math problem. So that's kind of your first off, right? Your basic. They have to be able to understand it. And then after that, you can kind of get into some other areas where reading and math kind of can butt heads too. Another area would be your problem solving skills. So, a really strong connection actually exists between reading comprehension and problem solving abilities in math. Students must be able to discern the meaning between or behind words in a word problem to really formulate an effective strategy for being able to solve it. So like this ability to read and understand a problem statement is really foundational to developing the necessary problem solving skills, really allowing students to like apply that mathematical concepts in real world scenarios. So there's kind of like your two basics. And then you can get into some more abstract problems. So another thing that teachers can face or students really can face is this contextual understanding. So math word problems often present concepts in real life context. I know if you go back to your standards, it always is saying, right, solving real world problems, solving real life examples, like what does that really mean? And so when students struggle with that, a lot of times it's because reading comprehension is not there. They don't have that real world experience. So reading comprehension aids in grasping this context and connecting it to the mathematical operations that are required to solving the actual word problem. It actually allows students to relate the problem in their own experiences, right? Do they have the schema? Do they have the understanding? Do they have the comprehension or the general knowledge to facilitate a deeper understanding of that math concept that they're having to solve that's involved in the problem and enhancing the overall comprehension of the problem? So then you can actually go even deeper and get more nitty gritty, talking about things like vocabulary and terminology. I know math vocabulary is huge. I always had a math word wall in my classroom, making sure that students, when they're seeing these words in problems, that they are able to use them and combine them with their comprehension skills and strategies to be able to understand and solve problems. But math word problems frequently use specific vocabulary and terminology, and adequate reading comprehension actually ensures that students can interpret or apply these mathematical languages or words that are used in the variety of problems that they come across. So a solid understanding in math terms is really essential for students to correctly identify like the operation, the relationships, and the different quantities that are involved in the problem, and that help contribute to like a more comprehensive understanding and overall understanding of the math problem itself.
Very interesting. One of my big passions in education or upper elementary, classroom is vocabulary instruction and teaching vocabulary in context. So I think that that's very interesting that you brought that into this conversation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of different connections between comprehension and math. And so it's good for teachers to understand and kind of see all the varied connections. That way they can see where their students are going to potentially struggle when solving the math word problem. Sometimes it's not math at all. That's the issue.
Absolutely. I love that you say that because it's so true. And it's really, really sad for those students who are struggling, to comprehend what they're reading and we're turning it into, oh, well, they're just not good at math. They're struggling with math. But really it's deeper than that. And so I
Mhm.
think that's very interesting that you bring that up. Hey, so what challenges do you say that students face when they struggle with reading comprehension in the context of math word problems?
Yeah, so like I kind of mentioned before, there's a lot of different connectors between those two worlds or those two subject areas. But when it comes down to like the actual students, you can break this down even further. So, one of the biggest areas where students can face a challenge is the misinterpretation of the problem statement that's actually in the math problem itself. So, do they actually identify the problem statement? Do they understand it? Do they know what it's asking of them? So students who struggle with reading comprehension, they may face challenges in accurately interpreting the language and the context of math word problems. So misunderstanding the problem statement can actually lead to errors in identifying things like key information, again, the operations, the relationships, really just hindering your students' ability to solve the problem correctly.
That is super interesting because I always was very big when I was in the classroom about whenever I was teaching problem solving, identify what it is you're being told, identify what it is you're being asked, and then decide how you're going to solve that problem or how you're going to answer that question. And so thinking about it in terms of, well, maybe they don't even understand what they're reading whenever they're being asked or what it is that they're being asked to do or what information they're being given. That's
Mhm.
really sad to me, and it makes me look back and think, oh my goodness, I let them down in that way, because coming from somebody who understands what it says, I don't put myself in their shoes enough, and that was probably a kind of a barrier of only being math only and not really having much of a reading background. But that's super interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah, and I think I mean that's one of the reasons they call them story problems, right? And then there's a lot of different ways you can call a word problem, but story problems, it's a story. There are characters, there is a problem to be solved. Like it's an actual story in of itself where there's a missing piece, and then the students are asked to use mathematical processes to be able to finish the story, basically. So there's a lot there to unpack when students struggle. So another area that students could find difficulties is when they are extracting relevant information. Reading comprehension difficulties actually may impede students' capacity to extract essential details from the word problem itself. And they may actually struggle to discern important, like numerical data, different conditions, or clues that are necessary for formulating a solid strategy to solve the problem. So, in this challenge, it can result in incomplete and inaccurate problem solving attempts. I mean, if you think back to, when they're reading a text that's not mathematical, this is one of the big problems. Are they able to find the important information? So if they're not able to do that when they're reading at their own reading level, then of course, when it comes to math, this is going to be a similar problem. So this is definitely something to look out for if you have students who just struggle in reading comprehension on its own.
Mhm.
Another area we mentioned before, again, is your limited vocabulary, your math terminology. Your students who have that reading comprehension difficulty, they may have a restricted math vocabulary, making it really challenging to be able to understand and apply like specific terms used in math word problems. So this difficulty with math terminology can actually hinder their ability to decode the problem, recognize like what kind of math operation do I need to use? And then ultimately, of course, then it impedes their success in solving the problem accurately. And then I think,
Absolutely. Mhm.
yeah. And then I think this one is a big one. I think this one is forgotten and not thought about a lot. But another big struggle here is the student's inability to connect math concepts with real world context. And I think teachers struggle with this too because they don't understand, because in their minds, all math is real world. But in students' minds, math is still so abstract to them that they don't see it as real world yet. And so math world problems can present mathematical concepts in a real world context, as we know. And so students can actually struggle with reading comprehension and find it challenging to relate these abstract math ideas to actual practical situations. They don't see that connection yet. And so this disconnect can hinder their ability to grasp the application of math concepts in everyday scenarios. So it really makes it difficult for them to fully comprehend and solve the word problems effectively. That's why I think so many times, we hear it over and over again, make the word problems about them and their lives, because they need to see where that math real world is actually in their real world. And so if we're not doing that, then this could absolutely be one of the bigger struggles that students have when it comes to solving math word problems.
I love that, being able to make that connection to them so that they can really see themselves in it and make that. I love that. That's a
Yeah.
great pointer. So, are there specific reading strategies that you have seen that are proven to be effective in enhancing students' ability to tackle math word problems?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There are a lot of fantastic strategies out there. I would love to share one that I don't think is widely talked about that I have used myself in the classroom and that makes such a tremendous difference. So I know listeners, teachers who are listening right now, they've probably all heard of close reading, right? This is an effective reading strategy where students are given typically 3 reads. Each read, they go back, they reread a text or a paragraph or even a sentence, and each read in a close reading strategy has a specific purpose. Is this something you've heard of before, close reading?
Yes, it is. I've done it a little bit, but like I said, I just was never very confident with reading instruction. I love to read but I just never felt confident in that. But yes, I have heard of close reading before, and I think that that's a great strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole purpose behind it is to really give students the power of understanding that I'm not going to understand everything the very first time I read it, that I'm going to reread and I'm going to reread with a purpose. And so we've taken this close reading strategy and we've applied it to math word problems. And so this is so powerful and so much fun. So I'm going to break this down that way listeners can really walk away with maybe even being able to do this starting tomorrow, depending on what they've got planned in math. So really, let's break this down. So again, in close reading, there are 3 reads, and so we're going to take that concept and we're going to keep it the same. So there are going to be 3 reads when you approach a math word problem. Each read is going to have a purpose and it's going to have action steps for your students to do in order for them to be able to understand and comprehend the text better. And then at the end, of course, be able to understand how to mathematically solve it. So it basically goes like this. The first read, what you will do is the students have to read the word problem, and then I actually have the students cover up the word problem. Like they read it, to themselves, they read it out loud, whatever, and then they cover it up or flip over their paper. And then you're going to actually have them visualize what they read and see what can they remember. Because your first read when it comes to the basic close reading is to just get the big picture. What is this? What is the big picture? Kind of what's the big main idea? What's happening? And what do you remember? So I want them to see, I actually want them to realize that they don't remember everything, that they don't remember every number. They don't remember every word. Do they even remember the characters' names? And it's okay if they don't. And I
Mhm.
want them to ask themselves one question that they are unsure of. So like, let's say, I'm going to give you a very basic word problem here, but let's say it's, Susie had one apple, Brian had two apples. How many apples were there altogether? Okay, great. I read it. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to think to myself, okay, I see apples. I remember apples because that word was there a lot. And there were Brian and I don't remember the other person's name. Um, I think one person had one apple, but I don't remember how many apples the other person had. Like, this is the kind of thinking they're going through in their brains. And I want them to see this, to know that, after reading this word problem one time, you shouldn't remember everything. We need to go back and we need to clarify some information. So this is when the second read comes in. So now we're going to go, okay, so let's read this word problem again and let's see if we can find the answer to those questions that we had when we were thinking through the problem. So when they go through their second read, now they're going to pick up their pencil. They haven't actually even had the pencil in their hand until now. So now they're going to read the problem again. And this is where you've probably heard of strategies such as like cube or cubes, right? So
Yes.
this is where I love using the cube strategy because what that does is it actually helps us find those key details. And then again, in close reading, the second read is all about finding key details. So now they're going to read the word problem again. They're going to use cube to help them analyze the information that they were given in the word problem. And then they're going to see if they can find the answers to the questions that they had when they were talking about the problem themselves. And then they're going to make a prediction about how they think they will solve the problem. Now, all of these steps are crucial, right? Because one, I want them to annotate, like a lot of times in the second read of in when you're reading in reading class and you're doing a close read, the second read is where students annotate. They may star things, they may highlight, they may put an exclamation mark or circle words, and that's really what cube has us do, right? We circle numbers, we underline facts, we box in the question word, we look for extra information or whatever your cube or cube strategy is. It can be implemented here. Like it doesn't have to be my cube strategy. It can be whatever you do. But the reality there is you want them to be in the nitty gritty of those key details and really looking at, oh, okay. So I think it was Susie. I can't remember the person's name I gave you.
Yeah.
Susie had one apple,
Susie.
right? Susie, thank you. Susie had one apple. Okay, so I'm going to circle one and I'm going to underline apple. Okay, so I have one apple. Brian had two. Okay, so I'm going to circle two and underline apple again. So I have two apple. Okay, so now see how they're getting into the nitty gritty
Mhm.
and they're kind of clarifying that information that they didn't remember from the first read. And now they're going to say, okay, I'm going to make a prediction. And this prediction part is really important because that's where you're starting to now they have the comprehension piece down. Now we're moving into more of the mathematical processing and understanding. So in the prediction helps them think, is this going to be the right operation to solve the problem? And then this is where the third read comes in. So after they've done all this and they have verbally made the prediction, and I actually even sometimes have them like write down the operation sign of what they think they're going to do to like confirm the prediction. So the third read, they go back to their word problem, they read it again for a final time. They confirm their prediction, and a lot of times I'll have them confirm this by, either verbalizing to a partner, looking for those word problem keywords, whatever it may be, and then they solve the problem. And this whole three reads allows them to work on the comprehension piece alongside the mathematical piece in one seamless experience. And it sounds like a lot. It does need modeled. Like you do need to go through and make sure you model this. I know I always had a poster up in my room with what you do during the three reads, but I guarantee you after like a few weeks of them doing this is going to be second nature to them. And they're going to realize that in order for me to be able to comprehend this story and solve math issues in this story or this word problem, I need to read it more than one time, and that's okay. And I have steps to be able to do this successfully. And then I'm going to do those. And wow, look at what I can do now that I have this strategy in place.
I absolutely love that. Everything you just said, that is so interesting. And I wish that I would have had you whenever I was in the classroom because I would have absolutely used this strategy like every single day. And I also think it's funny thinking, as an adult reader, there are times, I'm reading my book and I have to go back and reread to comprehend and reread to think about what was really being said there. And I've never really like made that connection before with, myself as a reader and the close read strategy. And I think that that's really interesting to think about it like that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
and it gives students just that power of like, they need to realize that they're doing two things. They're not just in math, they are also in reading. So when they
Mhm.
realize that and they see that I need to use this close reading strategy to comprehend first and then solve math second, it really
Mhm.
helps them kind of slow down, think through, do I understand who the characters are? What's happening? Like, what is the problem? What do I need to have solved? And then involve math secondly to be able to then do that. I put together some free practice pages of this. And I put together like a little blog post that has all these steps. It kind of breaks all this stuff down. And then in the blog post itself, it has a place where listeners, you can go in and put in like your email and stuff and then download some free practice pages. And there's a blank one in there too that has like the close reading steps at the top where you can write in your own word problems. That way you can practice this if you want. So I think we're going to put that link in the show notes. Correct me if I'm
Yes.
wrong. Yes.
Yes, we
Awesome.
definitely will. That is awesome. And I'm just thinking about the when you said you have a blank one in there, how fun would it be to have the kids write their own little word problems in there
Hmm.
and that, make it about them like we talked about before with the connection piece. That's really, really cool. I like that. Yes, I will definitely link that in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely go grab those.
So, how can teachers integrate reading comprehension exercises into math curriculum to better prepare students for word problems?
That's a great question. And I think the first thing is just to recognize that math is reading and that, they're interchangeable. And so when students can see that connection and then they can use that connection, it can be really powerful. So first thing, of course, is making sure your teachers have the cross-curricular lessons, those cross-disciplinary lessons. Design integrated lessons that combine both, your reading comprehension exercises and your math concepts. For example, like teachers can create word problems that involve reading a passage or a scenario, extracting that relevant information, and applying mathematical skills in order to solve some type of problem. So, this approach not only reinforces reading comprehension, but also demonstrates that real world application of math that really helps foster that more holistic understanding. You could do this in science, you could do this in social studies, like use math everywhere so that way they can see that math is not its own little bubble. And then
Absolutely.
the other thing, yeah, and the other thing too is use reading strategies in your math instruction. For example, you saw in the close reading, I have students visualizing. That's a reading strategy. You can have students work on determining important information. You can have them, asking questions. All of those, again, are reading strategies. So when you incorporate those explicit reading strategies into your instruction within math curriculum, it really helps provide students with really specific strategies for approaching word problems. So they actually know what they need to be doing while they're reading. They're not just reading, their mind's not blank. They're actually reading like they would read in reading class in math class. And so have them do things like identify keywords, underline important information, paraphrase, question, visualize, whatever you're doing in reading, do it in math when solving word problems. See that connection and make it seamless for them.
I love that. I wish that I could time travel back a few years and have this conversation with you. That is so funny.
Same, right? Same.
So, how does the ability to understand and interpret mathematical language contribute to a student's confidence in approaching word problems?
I love this question. And I think that there's a lot of different components. So when your students feel confident in their reading abilities, um, specifically in math language, then, the confidence is key. They're going to approach these word problems with knowing that, I have strategies that were going to help me read and understand this problem, and I have strategies in math that are going to help me understand my mathematical interpretations and abilities to solve this problem. So they're going to come into it kind of in twofold because you've given them lots of tools in their toolboxes, kind of in both areas. So the first area, of course, students have confidence in the clarity with problem understanding. Proficiency in understanding mathematical language really allows students to approach word problems with that clarity. They can decipher that problem statement that we talked about. They can identify those relevant details. They can comprehend specific mathematical operations required. Like they can use this clarity to contribute to their confidence in tackling the word problem overall. And as they feel more kind of assured in their understanding of the word problem and the requirements behind it, the comprehension, the math, all those pieces, and how to proceed with a solution, their confidence is just going to grow. And then also just looking at things like, effective problem solving strategies. Do they feel confident in how they problem solve? Do they feel confident in how they communicate the solutions? Not only do we solve math problems, right, but we also have to communicate the answer, and how we're communicating that answer is really big as well. So there's a lot of different areas in where, if we're tackling both sides of comprehension and math, you'll see a lot of different areas of their confidence grow.
Awesome. That is so true. So, what advice do you have for teachers looking to create a supportive and integrated approach to improving both reading comprehension and math problem solving skills in their classrooms?
So I would say again, start with just recognizing that they are kind of there's two sides to math, right? There's the comprehension side and the math side. And then when you recognize that, your approach in how you teach it is going to be different. So of course, you can do things like we talked about, integrating those cross-curricular activities, making sure that, your lessons kind of have a math focus and a reading focus kind of in all realms. But then also you can do things like provide explicit instruction on that like problem solving language. Offer teachers guidance on providing explicit instruction in that language and equip them with strategies to teach students how really to identify the keywords and phrases and structures that are commonly used in math word problems. You can do things like incorporate those real world applications. The one thing that I really want teachers to walk away with at the end of this is the word intention, and to see math as, you know, a two-sided sword almost, where you've got the reading comprehension side and the math side. And if I'm intentional about seeing that and representing that in my instruction, then my students are going to go a lot further, because we're really tackling both sides of a problem, where in the past maybe we were only looking at math word problems as a math problem instead of a reading problem as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for all of these great tips and ideas. I just have really, really enjoyed speaking with you today. So please go ahead and tell my audience where they can find you if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, of course. So, really, if you head to cieraharristeaching.com, which is my website, you really can get anywhere from there. I've got a YouTube channel. I actually have a podcast myself. It's called the Literacy Lounge. So if you're an elementary teacher and you're like, I teach both math and reading, you could hop over and give that a listen. I'm on all social media platforms with the handle at Ciera Harris Teaching. So really, if you just search that or go to my website, you can find me pretty much anywhere.
Awesome. Well, and I will definitely be linking all of those places in the show notes for this episode as well. So, Sierra, thank you again so much for being here today. I have truly enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was a pleasure.
I am excited to let you know that I am hosting a free online event called Math Madness for upper elementary math teachers. If you are listening to this before March 27th, 2024, you still have time to register to get access to tons of free resources, insider details about exclusive sales, and chances to win prizes in our free Facebook group. If you are not already a member of the Facebook group, now is the time to join, because not only will there be prize giveaways happening in there throughout the event, but I will also be posting updates about the event directly to the group members. You can join by searching Upper Elementary Simplified on Facebook or by clicking the link in the show notes and requesting to join that way. Either way, we would love to have you. Registration for Math Madness will be open from February 18th through March 26th. To get registered for the event, head to teachertechstudio.com/register, and that's REGISTER. I will also link that in the show notes for you. You can find that link by going to the episode description in your podcast player app or by heading to upperelementarysimplified.com/podcast. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Upper Elementary Simplified. I hope you are able to take away something useful that will help you grow as a teacher. I do have a quick favor to ask before you go. If you are enjoying the podcast, please let me know by leaving me a review. It really does make a difference because reviews impact search results, which helps me to expand my reach to other educators. Plus, I love to read my listeners' comments. Until next time, keep life simple.